Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. This is an hour devoted to learning something more, not just about the world of shoes and chips and sealing wax, but about how, what, and why we believe as we do. An hour for the open-minded, willing to challenge some of those old ideas behind what we think we know, who we are, and who we might become. I'm Eldon Taylor, and this is Provocative Enlightenment. All right, our chat room is open, and you can log on by going to eldontaylor.com/chat, where my partner Ravinder and her team will greet you. Now, I want to remind you that our last show here on Hay House Radio will be the 27th of August. We struggled with a decision to leave, but so many of you have asked for a 2-hour show, and we did ask Hay House for that 2-hour show, but it isn't a format they wish to pursue. So we finally decided to answer your requests and create one. We regret leaving Hay House Radio. The folks here are fantastic to work with, and the audience is simply superb. As such, we will be launching our 2-hour version of Provocative Enlightenment this coming January, with some truly exciting guests and a new fun format. And we'll still have our special chat room and the movies so we can share a live time with many of you during the broadcast. Now, between the time of our last Hay House show and January, we have something truly fantastic happening, and there is no one better to tell you about that than the person who dreamed it all up. So, Ravinder, please tell everyone, what is it you've got cooking in your kitchen?
Well, you know, this event actually is a little bit selfish of me, but it's actually not, because I get to share it with everyone. But, you know, I enjoy the teleseminars and things that lots of people put on. But, you know, I'm always left with that feeling of it being incomplete. Like you've got a whole bunch of random presentations. There's no connection between them. You don't follow anything in any depth. And I always want a lot more depth than is offered. So we have put together a special teleseminar series. It is totally free, where we are interviewing my favorite authors, my favorite people out there. So we have people like Lynn McTaggart, Marcy Shimoff, Howard Martin. We have a number of your favorite Hay House authors as well. So we have Joan Borisenko and Bruce Lipton and Robert Holden, Gary Renard. But having your interview style, honey, will just bring out something a whole lot deeper in the interview. But I've also we have a coherent theme going through everything. The teleseminar series is called Breaking Limitations. How did I get here? And how do I get where I want to be? So, you know, if everything is going okay in your life, it's about how to make it absolutely fabulous. But if you've got issues in your life, if you're in a place where it wasn't where you expected to be, where you dreamed of something bigger and better, well, we will be exploring all of those reasons of how you got there and how you can move beyond it. So we will be having, I think there's 24 episodes in this particular series. Each of the authors there will be asked the same question from their own perspective. So what do they bring to the table to answer the question, how did I get here? How do I get where I want to be? Each of these people will also be asked for a specific tip that you can put into practice today in order to make your life better. Now, we are running the teleseminar series on Mondays and Thursdays. You know, this is not a huge intensive everything packed in, because if you're anything like me, I can't take in that amount of information, not in a practical way. And
so what do you mean by it's not packed in?
It's
2 hours on Monday and 2 hours on Thursday?
That's correct, as opposed to having 10 different interviews in
the
a
same day. Okay,
yeah.
I got
See,
you.
I mean, when I do that, by the time I've got to interview number 5, I've forgotten interview number 2, even if it was absolutely fabulous. But what I wanted to do was to have, you know, an in-depth discussion from a particular perspective, provide you with definite tools that you can put into action right away, and give you the opportunity to do so before we come to the following class in the course that we're doing.
So you can actually, you know, use the tool and maybe even report on it a couple of days later.
That's correct.
There is a session or a part of this where callers will be able to participate. They'll be able to, the teleseminar, everybody that's listening in will be able to, both through email, and not email, but I mean,
well, there'll be email or the chat room
right.
or by calling in. So, yeah,
right.
they'll have all of those options available. But, yeah, this is designed to be very, very practical. It is very focused, all around the theme of how do I get where I want to be. So I would tell everyone out there, start thinking about it right now. Are you in the place that you wanted to be? Is this is this the place that you pictured you would be in when you were a child dreaming about being an adult? What else is there? What dreams have you given up? And let's see what we can do to make those dreams.
John Paul Getty said the way to success is to copy success. So what you've really done is you've put a couple of dozen of the best players on the field who have made success to talk about how they did it. Not just how they did it, but what their obstacles were, and to provide the tools that made it possible for them to overcome. And all of this, you're going to get free. You just listen to the show, and you're going to go away with the tools.
Yeah, of course.
I got that right?
Yeah, because it's my personal class that I'm allowing everyone to come and listen to. So I'm cheeky, I'm sorry. But to sign up for this, if you go to eldontaylor.com, we have designed a simple banner at the top there, so you can just register right there. That will put you on the list to get information specifically on the teleseminar series. So go out there right now.
So this is like 2-hour interviews, teleseminar style, but provocative enlightenment. We're going to actually interview these people, and we're going to pull the nitty-gritty, and this is all designed to be a continuous course that culminates basically on how to empower you to realize in your life today those things that you feel you have not realized, to overcome those obstacles or those limitations that exist in your mind, and to do so once and for all. I got that right?
Totally. It's going to be very practical, which is what I'm all about. You can have all the best ideas in the world and dreams, but that doesn't put food on the table. That doesn't give you that sense of satisfaction. And that's what we are going to have. So you will get tools in every single episode from whoever it is we're interviewing. There'll be something that you can action right away, and in time to fully get the flavor of it all before you come to the next class in the course.
I love it.
So go to eldontaylor.com. We have put a banner at the top of the page. It's called Breaking Limitations. So go there right now, sign up, and we will keep you fully informed as to what is going on. I will see you there.
Yeah, I love it. So shall we call this one Where the Rubber Meets the Road? Joking. So once again, our last show with Hay House will be on the 27th of August, and on that day, we will have a short trip down memory lane. We'd love to have you join us, and we welcome your letters and encourage your phone calls during our last show. In this way, you can help us cover the highs and maybe even some of the lows of the past 3 years. Okay, now every week I read, you have another point. You're raising your hand.
I do have another point. I just had someone in the chat room say, they couldn't make the entire Thursday 2-hour session because they've got something else. I did want to point out for the Breaking Limitations, once you've registered for the course, if you can't hear it live, there will be opportunities to hear the replay as well. But you do have to register for it. So go to eldontaylor.com and, you can hear it.
Opportunities that are free.
Of course.
Okay.
Totally.
Cool. All right, now every week I read some of your letters as our way of sharing your ideas and input. Last week our show was all about going naturally gray. Margot wrote, I had the pleasure of hearing your broadcast featuring the lovely Diana Jewel Lewis today. I appreciate that you listened to your wife's urgings to feature her. I had the privilege of meeting her at the first Silver Sisters meet in Las Vegas back in 2010. She truly has a passion and a gift for reaching out and encouraging women and men to embrace their natural hair color. Thank you for helping to further the cause. I wish you the best of success as you transition to your new radio station. Wherever that may be, I will continue to check to see where you land. Kathy wrote, I will miss your show on Hay House Radio and hope to continue following your wisdom. Many blessings to you. Thank you, Kathy. We will miss the great folks at Hay House as well. Don wrote, I'm delighted to hear you're going to try new adventures. However, I'm saddened you won't be with Hay House any longer. Please promise you and your lovely wife won't disappear, as I truly enjoy your Provocative Enlightenment show. I will keep a good ear out to hear where your new adventures take you, because I'm sure to follow. Well, Don, we promise. Remember to join me on Facebook or register to receive my free newsletter so you can get the announcement about which network we settle on. Jane wrote, I'm gutted that your last show on Hay House Radio is 27 August, but I will be keeping up with you. I'm sorry, Jane. We're not thrilled about leaving either. Karen wrote, love listening to you on Hay House and will follow you to your new show. Also enjoy the CDs I recently purchased. Michelle wrote, thank you, Eldon and Ravinder, for your shows each week on Hay House Radio. Your shows are interesting, informative, and inspirational. I look forward to your longer shows in the near future. Dr. Jack wrote, good to know that you will continue as you are inspirational to countless seekers, a true beacon of light. Thank you, Jack. Steve wrote, dear Eldon, I am one of your many customers. The reason I am contacting you is just to say I am so very glad you created the system you created for self-help, because it works magic. When one gets the proper title to overcome a situation one wants to overcome or to improve oneself. If only I had known about you 25 years ago. It was pure luck the way I found out about your organization, and wow, I am so pleased I did. Eldon, my most sincere congratulations for creating the system of InnerTalk. Well, thank you, Steve, and all the very best to you and yours. Darlene wrote, I just finished your book, I Believe. I really liked it. I agree completely that our beliefs shape our experience. You have given many examples demonstrating that throughout the book. I guess I've always believed that our beliefs can determine our experience, but there were many areas of the book that expanded that idea for me. I realize now how very important it is for me to understand all of my core beliefs, especially the ones that affect my life in ways that knock me off balance. The challenge is that many of my beliefs have come from past experiences that seem sort of cemented in my mind. I also realize that I have many preferences. Ideally, I would be able to accept whatever comes my way. Realistically, I have strong preferences in certain areas, and if I get the opposite of what I want, I have a tendency to react in ways I regret later. I want so much to find balance in my life, and I know that the best way to do this is uncover beliefs and preferences and alter them. Throughout the book, you mentioned choosing our beliefs. Again, I would like to choose to believe certain things, but my experiences have ingrained the opposite in my mind. It feels like I'm pretending when I say to myself, from now on, I choose to believe this. How do I make that genuine new belief without having experiences to back it up? Well, Darlene, you do it the same way I and many others have done, a little bit at a time. There is no sudden, quick fix that negates or cancels many years of negative beliefs, self-limiting thoughts, feedback, and the like. I've heard lots of stories about quick fixes, but I don't know of one firsthand, nor do I know someone over the long term where that quick fix has really fixed anything. There are many steps that can be taken on a day-to-day basis that facilitate changing much more rapidly than you might think. And I outline many of them in my books, Choices and Illusions and Mind Programming. But I'll tell you what. Sign up for the free teleseminar course we are offering, Breaking Limitations, and you'll hear tangible ways that you can make your dreams a reality from experts on the subject of how did I get here and how do I get where I want to be. All right, that's all the time we're going to take for letters today, but I do invite you to opine by sending your email to eldon@eldontaylor.com or by joining me on Facebook. We can't get all of your letters on the air, but they do impact our programming, and we thank you for your continued support and feedback. Now to today's show, the Alien Abduction Files. We have interviewed several guests in the past who have shared their interest in research regarding the UFO phenomena. Perhaps you recall some of the arguments Georgios Tsoukalos made having to do with ancient aliens, or the first-hand accounts of Dr. Stephen Greer and his arguments having to do with government cover-ups and so forth. Today's guests are here to speak with us about abductions, what has been billed as the most startling cases of human-alien contact ever reported. I must admit that before I conducted so many interviews with experts in every walk of life, I dismissed the alien stuff as nonsense. As a scientist and a former criminalist, I tend to need some pretty good evidence before buying into strange things and fringe ideas. That said, where I might be quick to expose dishonesty or nonsense, and I've done that right here on this show, I also have an open mind. For me, in your What It's Worth department, there is more to the alien issue than most governments of the world wish to admit. There is still an abundance of nonsense out there, and that's perhaps the larger problem when it comes to getting to the truth. That brings us to today's guest, and actually we have two guests joining us. Kathleen Marden and Denise Stoner, two established investigators and media experts in the field of alien abduction. So let me tell you a little bit about both of them. Kathleen Marden is a well-known UFO abduction researcher, author, and lecturer with 23 years' experience in the field. She is MUFON's, and MUFON, M-U-F-O-N, is short for Mutual UFO Network. So she's MUFON's International Director of Abduction Research. For 10 years, Kathy volunteered as MUFON's Director of Field Investigator Training. In 2012, she was the recipient of MUFON's Researcher of the Year Award. She is the author of 3 books, Captured, The Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience, Science Was Wrong, which she wrote with nuclear physicist Stanton T. Friedman, and The Alien Abduction Files with Denise Stoner. Kathy has appeared in television and radio programs in the U.S., Canada, and the U.K., and has lectured throughout the United States. Now, Denise Stoner is MUFON's Assistant Director of Abduction Studies and a MUFON field investigator. Denise holds educational forums for public and private gatherings for abduction experiencers. Her involvement in the UFO field spans more than 20 years. For 12 years, Denise did background investigations for the military on recruits seeking highly classified clearances for work on nuclear submarines. Prior to retirement, Denise moved to the Naval Air Warfare Center, Training Systems Division, military research facility where she was the training coordinator for several hundred military and civilian employees. Her retirement from the federal government has allowed her to expand her work with UFO research and investigation. Denise has appeared on many radio shows and speaks yearly at the Daytona Museum of Arts and Sciences and the Paranormal Investigative Association, plus other venues. She has also worked as an on-camera expert for documentaries produced in the UK. So let's get both of them in here. Welcome to Provocative Enlightenment, Kathleen Marden and Denise Stoner.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Now, in order, ladies, for us not to end up speaking over each other, I'm going to address each of you separately, if that's all right. So let's begin with you, Kathleen. Tell us about how you really became involved in UFO research.
Very interesting story. I was 13 years old when I first became involved. My aunt, Betty Hill, called my mother, her sister. It was September 20th, 1961. And Betty reported to my mother that she and my Uncle Barney had been traveling through New Hampshire's White Mountains the previous evening and had a close encounter with a UFO, and that it had hovered so close to their car that she feared that they might have been exposed to radioactivity. And the story began there. There was a lot of physical evidence that something happened. A lot of conscious recall. My uncle ended up developing post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the experience, the part of the experience that he consciously recalled, where he observed non-human entities aboard this craft looking down at him as he was standing in a field looking at them through binoculars, feeling that he was going to be abducted if he didn't get out of there. There were buzzing sounds in the trunk of the car, and then a 2-hour period of missing time. All of their memories of abduction were recovered in 6 months of hypnosis sessions and therapy with renowned psychiatrist Dr. Benjamin Simon in Boston, Massachusetts in 1964. So that is actually when I became involved in all of this, but I went on, I became a social worker and then an educator, education services coordinator. But about 23 years ago, I decided that I wanted to leave all of that and to pursue a career as a UFO abduction investigator and writer. I wanted to begin by researching my aunt's UFO abduction experiences, and over the next 14 years, she worked with me, turned all of her files over to me, including the hypnosis tapes, for comparative analysis. So it gave me a wealth of information for my first book, Captured: The Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience.
And obviously you became the foremost expert on that case, and we're going to get into that in a bit. But let's get, all the introductions here. So now, Denise, your background in investigative work for the government tends to suggest a well-grounded person, one not too likely to give UFO stuff a second look. So how and why did you become involved?
Well, I had a sighting, for one thing, of a craft that I could not identify, and I was well versed in what planes looked like, what helicopters looked like. I was always interested in sky watching and the planets and stars. That's always been an interest of mine, and my husband and I sighted a craft in broad daylight along with several college students. We were all watching this thing over the foothills outside our apartments in Colorado. That was just one thing. I'd had experiences as a child that I didn't have answers to, and then suddenly in Colorado, my husband and I found ourselves on a mountain pass, and then it was broad daylight, and then suddenly we were on another mountain pass. It was pitch dark, and 3 hours of our time was missing. And
so
we had no answers. We had memory of huge, big, dark eyes, beings that I could not identify, my parents waiting for us on the other side, so there were witnesses. I had someone with me. There were all kinds of things going on that you could investigate. And
all
that
right.
got me very involved.
So, I can imply from that you were actually abducted. And we're going to talk about this in detail in the second half of our show. We've got a hard break coming up here in under a couple of minutes. So let me ask both of you, each of you, just quickly give me an answer, if you will. Beginning with you, Kathleen. Recently, former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer testified of knowing that there were 4 alien races that have been visiting the Earth for some time. I know that you must be familiar with this. What is your opinion on 4 races?
I think that Paul Hellyer is correct, and I think that those are the Greys, the insectoid type, a reptilian type, and a Nordic type. I think those are the 4 that he was probably referring to. And I've received many, many reports from individuals who have had contact with these 4 types of beings.
And Denise, I assume that you would endorse what Kathleen has just said. Have you interviewed abductees from more than one race?
Yes, I have, and both of us, Kathleen and I, have heard Paul Hellyer speak in person. I believe what he is saying and what he knows, and I have also interviewed abductees who have brought forward the same information.
Okay, well, in the next half hour, I promise you, we're going to go in depth into this entire abduction matter and these 4 races and the comments of a former defense minister for the Canadian government. We're speaking with Kathleen Marden and Denise Stoner about their working book, The Alien Abduction Files. You're going to want to read this book. It's captivating. If you're not already in our chat room, now's a great time to join in the conversation. We have a special video clip for you today, all about alien research and MUFON. You can join in the fun by logging into eldontaylor.com/chat. Do stay tuned. You don't want to miss what's coming up after a few words from some of our friends.
Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
And welcome back. If you just joined us, we're speaking with Kathleen Marden and Denise Stoner about their working book, The Alien Abduction Files. But before we get back to the show, my pretty bride has just got to have 2 minutes here. So go, you're up.
Oh, I just want to urge everyone to go out right away and sign up for the Breaking Limitations. I mean, if you're anything like me, you can get busy and kind of forget. But if you just jump out on the internet right now, go to eldontaylor.com, click on that top banner. The whole thing will take you just a couple of seconds. And I want to see each and every one of you in this teleseminar series. It is going to be absolutely fabulous. So sign up for it, and then we will stay in front of you and remind you who is coming on, when they're coming on. And we actually have a whole bunch of bonus gifts that will be added to this as we go along. But if you register now, you will be able to access everything. So that is just go to eldontaylor.com, click on the banner at the top that says Breaking Limitations, and you can break all of your limitations right now.
Now, let me ask you one more thing before we go back to our show. On our last show, is Mama Claus going to be in?
Mama Claus is
because you're always giving things away. So is Mama Claus going to be in?
Yeah, of course. If
right.
I get a chance to talk, I get a chance to play Mama Claus.
You need to let our regulars know Mama Claus will be in-house on our last show. All right. Before the break, we were discussing comments, actually, by Minister Paul Hellyer. He's the former Canadian Defense Minister, who testified that he knew of 4 alien races. And both of our guests have suggested that, what he is saying is right on. I mean, when you think of an expert witness, if you're able to bring in someone of sound mind that was the defense minister of a government the size of Canada's, that's got to be pretty impressive to me. So I guess my question then, if I may, Denise, going right back to you, you indicated before the break that you had interviewed abductees from different races that had been abducted by one of these 4 different races. Is there something different that each of them are looking for?
That's a question that Kathleen and I are both trying to come up with an answer. I myself have seen, I don't know if there's 3 separate races, if robots are involved with the smaller grays. I saw them myself. I was involved with them. I don't have any answers. I've interviewed many. We're doing a questionnaire right now to study the commonalities among these abductees. We're trying to resolve something, to put a puzzle piece together to try and find out what are they up to. Does anybody have an answer? Individuals have come forward and said, I saw them, and here's who they are and what they look like. And we ask, what did they tell you? Well, there's something locked in my brain, and I can't get it out. And when we try to force it from them, it gets locked tighter. And there's an actual physical reaction that comes forward that keeps them from bringing one more word out of them. So we're working on that also. But those entities that you mentioned previously are the ones that they talk about. They can draw them, and they all look pretty much the same.
Kathleen, I've read your book, and again, I really enjoyed your book. It's for our audience. Can you give us an overview of what they would expect if they were to sit down to your book?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The book is about 2 major abduction cases, that of Denise Stoner and that of Jenny Henderson. And as Denise stated previously, she had 2 major missing time events, one in Colorado in 1982, one in Florida in 1991. And there were witnesses. There were people on the other end waiting for her. Her husband was with her both times. Her 14-year-old daughter was with her one of those times. And Denise believes that she has been abducted throughout her lifetime. So you'll read about Denise's experiences, about my investigation of those experiences, and you'll find out really what it's like to live life as an abduction experiencer, particularly when you're really apprehensive about letting anyone know about this. Then we go on to the case of Jenny Henderson and her family. This is a multi-generational abduction scenario. Her mother was taken, probably her brother. She was taken. She had a major missing time event when she was 16 years old. And her first husband was also taken, her children as well. So you will read about a lifetime of abduction experiences, messages that she has received from the ETs, her perception of all of this, and also what it feels like, the fears she went through, the evolutionary stages that she went through in realizing what occurred, and the initial terror she felt, and then coming to the point where she's been able to accept this and to move forward toward understanding and curiosity.
And I really appreciate personally how you've been able to weave some drama into a clinical examination in the way you've written the book. But Kathleen, why on earth would aliens abduct generation after generation of a family unless there was something like a difference in their DNA? And I would assume you've already looked at those kinds of issues. So what on earth would be the motive of that?
Well, I think that you've hit the nail on the head, that I do believe that this is a longitudinal study of our DNA, and possibly they might be altering our DNA in some way over a very long period of time and studying it through generations.
Well, has the family or you worked with geneticists on looking at the DNA of this family?
No, we have not looked at the DNA of this family. I do not believe that the ETs are genetically compatible with us. I have talked to a geneticist about this and about sort of gene splicing, where you can insert certain traits into the human, but they would not necessarily show up in DNA testing.
Denise, you are an abductee, and there are so many stories out there. I mean, we've heard of, sexual molestation, medical implants, chips in the brain, and so on and so forth. And it makes it really difficult to sort fact from fiction. Tell us about your experience. What happened when you were abducted, to the best of your recollection, as you've recovered the memories through time?
Well, from the time I was 2.5 years old, and I absolutely remember, I can pinpoint the first time, although I didn't realize what it was when I was that young, except that a little entity or a little creature, I thought it was a nursery rhyme character, came to get me in a hood, carrying some sort of tool or a light, came to take me to play in some sort of metallic room, and I don't recall all of that, and we haven't delved into what happened when I was there, but I was brought home, and I had seen a huge craft outside the window the first time that happened, and it was the night that my mom was in the hospital giving birth to my sister. And I remember it very clearly, and the fear on my grandfather's face when I showed him what was outside the window. He closed the window and put me to bed, and then I was taken. And so from there, as I got older and older, and I was in a breeding program, I know that's what it was. I had several pregnancies that all of a sudden were either miscarried or taken. And now when I'm older, I don't know the purpose. I have altered blood as far as genetics go. They are looking to see what's wrong because 1 minute my blood will clot, the next minute it's too thin. They're not controlling it well with medication. If I stop the medication for them to find out how it's working genetically, they don't know what will happen. I would love to know myself. So throughout the years, something is going on. They're altering. They have put in devices, one in my elbow that Kathleen herself helped me track for a week. And when I was going to go in and have it x-rayed, it exited through my hand. It was gone.
So it's remotely controlled, or what are you suggesting by that?
Well, we've come up with several ideas. They were either tracking me or they were using it to do something to me health-wise that I don't think was bad. It may have been beneficial. We have several ideas. You could ask Kathleen also what she thinks. But we followed it. It was inserted into my elbow, came all the way down just under the skin till it reached the top of my hand, and it took a week, and then it was gone.
Gone like flew away, gone like
just
dissolved?
Disappeared. Don't know if it dissolved. I don't know. There was no opening in the back of my hand. So it could have dissolved. It just suddenly, overnight, was not there any longer. But you could feel it moving as it traveled during the week.
Are there any other physical aspects to the abduction that linger or that you experienced over time?
I have the marks on my body that I photographed that Kathleen has copies of. And during the period where we worked with hypnosis and I was shown the operation center of a craft, I reacted physically. And some of the physical reactions have remained in my waking state. And she was able to photograph that. We took it back and did a video of that reaction that I didn't know was happening at the time, that somehow the operation of this craft caused something physical to happen in me because I was feeling this center core causing my muscles and nerves to react in such a way that you could see it. So we went back and videotaped it, and she's using that in her lectures. I will use it in some of mine so that people can see what can happen to you on a craft.
You say you use it in the lectures. Would it be available on YouTube or somewhere where the listening audience could see it?
Well, you can ask Kathleen what we're going to do with that. We haven't decided fully, but ask her what she thinks.
Okay, well, Kathleen, are you going to put it up on YouTube so we can all see it?
I really don't know the answer to that question. Of course, that belongs to Denise and to myself, and her husband is the one who does that sort of thing. I guess we'll have to discuss that when I return to Florida, where Denise lives, in the fall.
Well, be sure you let us know. But, where we are and where I am often is, and I know that you would hear this, you would encounter it all the time, there is a credibility issue with UFOs. And the credibility issue comes down to forgive the psychobabble, but there are all kinds of psychological reasons that people can believe that they've been abducted, that they can even manifest physical symptoms of an abduction. So, the real test, the real burden has to be upon the individual that's making the claim that seems to be so, that stretches the credibility so much. And that's why I ask you for, can you post this on YouTube so we can all see it? But let's redirect this way, Kathleen. You've interviewed more than one abductee. Is there anything in common that these abductees share by way of their profiles, their psychology, their backgrounds, their economic experiences, etc.?
Well, I can say that I've interviewed hundreds of abductees, and in the year 2012, Denise and I did a year-long research project on commonalities among experiencers. And we found 23 commonalities out of 45 questions that our control group did not have in common with these experiences. And they ranged from a craving for salt to certain diseases or conditions that they had, such as migraine headaches at a much higher rate than the general population, and chronic fatigue and immune dysfunction syndrome, a formal medical diagnosis at 38% as opposed to less than 1% in the general population. Aside from that, they tend to be intelligent, well-functioning individuals. Most of them said that they were happy, stable, and did not suffer from psychiatric problems. And so we see this time and time again in abduction experiences. And in fact, Jenny Henderson underwent a battery of psychological tests, and she was the second experiencer that I wrote about in the book. Mm-hmm. She came out absolutely normal on all tests, including tests for personality disorders such as fantasy proneness.
You know, sometimes the cart and the horse get confused. And you can have a commonality such as an immune disorder that actually predisposes people to experiences that the rest of the population doesn't have. Do you think that of the population you've talked of, any percentage of it is predisposed, or do you accept all of the evidence that you have as being credible?
I don't think that in the case of chronic fatigue and immune dysfunction syndrome, it is predisposed. It did not show up in the earlier abduction experiencers who were taken from their vehicles, such as in Betty and Barney Hill, and in Travis Walton, for example. It only seems to have arisen when experiencers started to be taken to the craft in a new way, and that was through solid surfaces. So I wonder if this has something to do with the physics involved in causing the person to pass through a solid
Beam
object.
me up, Scotty syndrome. I get it. Well, now, then let me ask you this, Kathleen. We're just going to stay with you for a second since Denise keeps saying, ask Kathleen.
Put me on the spot.
When you interview people, certainly there are frauds that come before you, are there not?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are people
What criteria do you use to separate those from the credible testimony that you've collected?
Well, I do a thorough investigation in cases such as these and look into the individual's background, interview that individual either in person or through Skype where I can see them. I've been trained in FBI lie detector testing, looking for body language that indicates that the person is not being entirely honest. We also look for a number of characteristics that we know are common in experiencers. And Denise and I possess information, as do all of the major researchers, of information that the general public does not have, that experiencers do not have. So if these things are mentioned, then it will notify us that this is a real experience.
How many times do you interview somebody that is, that knows someone that has been abducted or is related to somebody that's been abducted? I mean, what percentage of that goes on?
Where I interview someone and they tell me that they know someone has been abducted?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm looking to see how much of this is, if your friend has been abducted, is there a higher likelihood that you will be abducted? If someone in your family has been abducted, are you more likely to also experience the abduction? I mean, is there an insider loop to the information?
Now I see what you're looking for. Yes, it definitely follows along family genetic lines, but not necessarily among friends.
Yeah, that's true. And we have another questionnaire out that I developed most of, and also the more questions you have, the more are formed, and I've started to work a control group because now I've seen something or spotted something that I'm questioning that has to do with comfort levels as far as our temperature level outdoors that we're willing to tolerate. That's become very interesting, and I'm asking abductees, supposed abductees, and then a control group of everyday people that are not abductees, if you could choose a temperature level that you would live in year-round, daytime, nighttime, what would that degree be? Give me a range of 3 to 5 degrees, and I'm very surprised at some of the outcome, and I'm still working on it.
The salt, these other characteristics you're talking about. Listen, Paul Hellyer indicates in his testimony that all of this that we know as our civilization was actually seeded by these aliens. Do either of you buy that story?
That's really difficult. I would need to see more evidence. It's certainly part of the ancient alien story. It's part of Barry Downing's UFOs in the Bible book, and historically there's been a lot of interest in this. I am a person who wants to see really solid evidence that this is true, and I have a difficult time taking A and B and not getting A, B, but jumping onto M. So I would have to really see good conclusive evidence.
And how about you, Denise?
I'm pretty much in the same spot. I need to have more information to connect all the dots. There's a lot of people calling themselves star children, starborn, et cetera, but let's connect all the dots first.
Okay, while we're on Hellyer, he also, in his testimony, indicates that it could be a security danger, these aliens to the Earth. We have very little time, so actually I'm going to have to abort that question because I want both of you to tell everybody how to contact you, where to find your book, etc.
Okay, well, my website is Kathleen with a K, Marden, MARDEN.com. You can purchase autographed copies of my books on my website. There are also many articles that I've written on the topic of alien abduction and Betty and Barney Hill, my aunt and uncle. And the book is also available at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble. You can order it from any bookstore if the bookstore doesn't carry it. And it's available in electronic.
Denise, it's your turn.
Oh, okay.
Very quickly.
Denise, M as in Margaret, Stoner.com.
That's it. Get the book everywhere else. Denise is not long on words, folks. She says, ask Kathleen. Listen, we've come to the end of another hour of Provocative Enlightenment. I want to thank our behind-the-scenes team, Kyle and Joe, as well as the rest of the gang at Hay House Radio for making what we do on this show so pleasurable. And, of course, a big thank you to all of you and our guests today for joining us. I want to remind you, you do want to go to eldontaylor.com / no / for that, just eldontaylor.com. Click on that banner, Breaking Limitations. All right, if you have comments on our show, please send us a letter, drop me a note on Facebook, let us know. Okay, until next time, wherever you are in the world, remember, believing in yourself always matters.